Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, the study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. For those of you who do not know, the word mythology is made from using two words, the Sanskrit myth and the Latin logos, which is etymologically combined. That to add O, it becomes mythology, which was coined specifically to prove that the Vedic scriptures are not real. Opposite of that, there was no word opposite existing. We created the word. Opposite of myth in Sanskrit is Sat, which also denotes absolute truth. So using the same etymological rules like mythology, we had to add the O and emphasize with the additional T so that it rhymes with the Sanskrit grammar as well. So it became Sattology. So don't use the word mythology because the mythology denotes that you're telling that your own history is fake. And when you say Sattology, that means you're telling your own history is fake. If you want to test it, so try in any kind of biblical conversations, you use the word according to biblical mythology. You'll see how much people get angry. But when somebody says Hindu mythology, you accept. So that's you need to avoid. So our scriptures from the Western perspective is Sattology, and anything without astronomical or archaeological proofs is mythology. And in my books and travels, I have proved that whatever is written in Valmiki Ramayana is in fact, geographical fact. So right from Peru, right in India, and my next travels are in Europe and also coming down to Indonesia. And there also you will see that every single place mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana comes out to be true. In future, when we get a chance, we'll also go to Mongolia to prove the existence of Meru Parvat, which is called Khan Tegri today. The secret is out. You can check it out. So I have very special guests today who have written a very interesting title. And we have been saying it, that word casta is the origin of the word caste. So if somebody asks, do you have a caste system? It actually means caste is a European word. It's not related to Hindu culture. So they have come out with a good research book. And so let us welcome Guruji Sundarraj and Akshaya Simran.
Namaskaram and very good day to everyone. Thank you for having us on the show, Aditya ji. I think the work you're doing is wonderful. We are quick, ardent fans. We've watched a few shows as time permits, and definitely will watch more. And also your books are very interesting. So thank you for having us.
So Simran, you can, just before we start off this presentation, tell me one thing, Guruji and Simran, Akshaya, whoever wants to say, Guruji first. What was your motivation to write on this topic?
I really have to. We have actually there's three of us as authors. There's one more author. He's a philanthropist, a businessman who has started 17 Gurukulams in Malaysia. And his name is, in the cover of the book, his name is Pardip Kumar Kukreja. Okay. So we accidentally met over WhatsApp because of the Gurukulam work he was doing. And so he had this idea, and there was a lot of problems he was facing. A lot of the poor kids that were in the Gurukulam were target of different kinds of brainwashing, and most of them were presented with the caste narrative to break their ego, so that they will follow other religions and all that. So this was a pressing issue which he shared with me, and said we should write a book on this, do a lot of research. And it started last year June, and then our journey took place, and Ms. Akshaya joined us to do a lot of research on this matter, because what happens is that when there is an accusation from anywhere in the world, what we do normally, it can be any religion, not Hindus alone, anybody. When somebody accuses them, they will defend it. Okay, they will defend it what comes to their mind. But what we wanted to do, and Pardipji emphasized on this, is that he said we must have enough evidence, factual recorded history, to prove that what we are saying is truth, not just philosophical thoughts or those kind of rebuttals. So the journey started because of that, and then we took facts, historical facts from 1600 AD. When the Western people started moving more, like from the 13th century, Marco Polo visited China and India. So we had to go back to that time period and see what was happening in India, because their records are quite factual. And so we moved on until we came to the colonization by the British, and then the Goa Inquisition by the Portuguese. And so there was a lot of evidence that mattered to Hindus and the world. And because caste has become a weapon to degrade our Vedic dharma, which is, and I think a lot of the audience themselves who have learned yoga, Ayurveda, astrology, Vedic astrology, and all that, they themselves know that there's so much of knowledge involved in here, very high level knowledge. And how come on the other side, like a seesaw, it just drops, and the caste narratives is like a bad wound, not unhealing wound in the body that keeps on recurring, and it shows a bad light of our Vedic civilization and dharma. And also a lot of the yoga students who themselves come from America and Europe, they themselves can't believe that this is possible, that one side this goes on to even mathematics and Aryabhatta and so many things that you're very well off, Aditya ji. And on one side, they are saying that we have the caste system, it's so misogynistic and so patriarchal and all that. It doesn't make sense. So this book, we want to reveal the truth so people understand once and for all what happened, how it happened, who are the players behind it, and what is their modus operandi.
See,
It's
when somebody
important
says,
to know.
when somebody from Europe or any other place, Europe has been suffering from caste system for a very long time. Nobles
Very,
versus commoner. So when
yes,
they ask a Hindu about caste system, they're projecting their problems on Hindus. So it's
exactly.
nothing to do with Hindu, because the word Varna has nothing to do with caste.
Yes.
Now it's like an alphabet. It's like A, B, C, D, which it can be anything. And if somebody asks me if A is better than D, then you can't make a sentence, right? Any alphabet, Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha. You cannot make a sentence out of anything else. So
True.
Akshaya, I have one question to you, since you are the younger one on the lot here, and you get attacked the maximum. We have all gone through it. Guruji has gone through it. We have gone through it. And we know answer also. Like if somebody asked me in USA, do you have a caste system? So I said, caste is in which language? It's an
That's
English
true.
word. Maybe,
Yes.
so how can it be affiliated to us? English is not my language. English is not my mother tongue. English is a
Very
skill
true.
that I've acquired. So Akshaya, when somebody asks you, do you have a caste system? So do you go on explaining? Because most of the times, the Hindu origin people go into long answer. We have Aryabhatta, we have this, we have that, just like Guruji just answered just now.
Yeah.
There
We
is
get
no need
carried
to
away.
answer such long questions, because foolish
No.
questions deserve foolish questions. We don't have to answer.
Yeah.
So how
Very
do
true.
you answer when somebody asked you, Akshay?
Actually, I have gone through that, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to find further details or research regarding this so that it can be a supporting evidence. However, when someone asks me like that, I'll just tell them when there's an issue or a problem arising in your life, you will always go to the root of it. So, please tell me, what is the root word for caste? Where does it origin from? And even if they look up in internet, it's there in Google. The first search, casta is the root word, which is origin word for Spanish and Portuguese. Then how is it from Hindu? That's all. That's about it.
Good answer. Because see, sometimes in the American campuses, American students also go through it. Oh, you are getting into the caste system. But if you look at their literature, right from Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato, they are talking about caste system in Europe. Now,
That's
if the Greeks are talking about it, and it's an Athenian democracy is talking about it, and the Western world has just adopted it, And foolishly, the Middle East has also adopted it, foolishly. Because the Middle Eastern people, they get a superiority complex, and I'm not singling out anyone, but I'm just saying that, oh, we don't have a caste system. No, that's not correct. In the tribes, there was a superior tribe and a lower tribe.
Yeah.
And that goes on till date. Nobody in the Middle East can become a sheikh. Nobody. It has to be part of the
Nobody.
family.
And
Otherwise,
clear
they cannot
lineage.
become sheikh. They cannot become the presidents or the prime ministers. So
That's
it's
right.
and in India, the Hindu culture, qualification, patratva was more important than the birth.
Yes.
Like so many kings and rishis have been made, those people, even though they did not belong to family structures. So the
That's right.
only place where this kind of differentiation doesn't exist is the Hindu culture. Now, coming to this question again, Guruji, before you see the presentation. So in your part of the world, by the way, audience should know that they are joining from Malaysia. So there is a little bit delay. So just ignore that. So when you encounter in that part of Southeast Asia was intrinsically connected to Bharat. Thailand kings, Philippines was a Hindu country. 1521, it was forcibly converted. Cambodia still retains Hindu connections. Now, in that part of the world, what is the definition in the local cultures about this kind of about caste?
Actually, in Malaysia and Singapore is not prevalent. And those days during my time, it was included in the school books as part of history. But in Miss Aksha's time, it's no more there because the history books has been changed to with world history and all that. It's not really a stigma that we carry, and nobody asks anybody. I've not encountered anybody who has asked me, "What is your caste?" Or it is not part of the topic. And also, we live together with the local native Malay and Chinese people population. Malaysia is mixed multiracial, so our issues are different. It's not so. It's only sometimes it happens in religious people and children is for them to break their ego. Only that. Nobody will dare ask these questions, and it's not part of the culture. It's not an issue here.
So, Akshay, about you, do you encounter such questions in your?
I do, but the funny thing is, it's never from my peers or a younger generation. It's always from the older generation. So yeah, I think the younger generation have no idea of caste, and they're not bothered at all regarding this. We are the Gen Z, and also we're not even bothered. However, the older generation, they do ask in a very how to say subtle manner. They're not strict about it, or they do not put us down in any way, but they just want to know about it. What is your caste?
Curious.
Yeah, just about curious. Yeah, they're only curious. That's about it.
So I think we'll get started with the presentation, and then you can share. And while you're sharing the presentation, Guruji, one question to you is that so Malaysia has been, Akshay, you can share the presentation. You can
Okay.
continue talking. So in the Malaysia, which has been mentioned as Malaya Desh in Mahabharata as well as Ramayana, and also Malaysia has been on the path of Bhimsena in Mahabharata is very clearly mentioned. Ghatotkacha was there, Indonesia and Malaysia, and Ramayana also intrinsically part of it. How much is these two books part of the Malaysian culture?
Oh, okay. If you look at Hindu people, of course, it's a big part of their life, rather than Ramayana. And Malaysia,
Go ahead.
you know, it's just fact. They will then so it is still available in Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia. The shadow mainly in Malaysia, it was is due to the
I think your internet connection is not good, Guruji. Would you like to answer that, Akshaya?
Yes, come again, Aditya ji.
I asked Guruji the question that the local Malaysian, do the Malaysians, they know that they have intrinsically connected part of Mahabharata Ramayana, the Hindu culture?
They do.
They do. They do because of the close relationship with Indonesia, Thailand, and Cambodia. And also, there's a very old archaeological site in northern Malaysia where the Chola kingdom, they had a empire there in north part of Malaysia, and they still have the ruins of that time period as a archaeological site is protected under the museum department. So they are aware.
Very good, very good. I think everybody else is more aware of their culture than India. India has the worst program where they don't teach anything about their own culture. So
Yeah.
more mythology in India than even in Europe sometimes.
I
So
think mostly it goes back to the history book.
yes,
It all
more
starts there.
in fact, you will be more aware about Hindu culture than even Indian students. Majority of them. Majority of the Indian students are always in doubt.
Okay.
So Akshay, let's begin. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, before we start, this is the book, Caste is Not Hindu. It's already available at all platforms, Amazon and Flipkart and so forth. And this is our website, www.casteisnothindu.com. For more information about the authors, about the book itself, and if you want to have a read through of the introduction, you can go to this website and check it out. So, I think, Guruji, you may start.
Okay. The core problem, why this book came about, is we have the meaning of Brahmin, and then we have to look at what is the meaning of Brahmana, and what is the difference between these. This is a Sanskrit word. So when we talk the Varna Shrama, then we have Brahmana, we have Kshatriya, we have Vaishya, we have Sudra. Okay, these categories, and these categories are not vertical and hierarchical. It's horizontal. Okay, what it really means is that we understand when we study the shastra-s really, and we look at what people have been before, and then it's only once they. So the real meaning of Brahmana, when we look at the Sanskrit dictionaries in India, it's a student or a scholar pursuing the studies of on Brahman. Okay, that's the original meaning also in the Sanskrit. The whole English. So what was it got converted to Brahmin on later stages. So the early dictionaries, even in England, mentioned Brahmana, and then they gave the meaning that it's a student scholar or a pandit. Normally they say a pandit or a priest. Okay, normally pandit is they say it's a priest. So that's the original meaning of Brahmana. But slowly over the years, the Brahmana was changed to Brahman. When we looked at the dictionary, especially Moni William dictionary, Brahmana became Brahman, and then later it was Brahmin. It was no more Brahmana. So when you look at the meaning of Brahmin, even today when you Google it, or you look at any of the dictionaries, mostly out of India, Brahmin has been convoluted to an upper caste priest, upper caste Hindu. So during our research, we found, because in Sanskrit language and even in more other Indic languages, we only use the term Brahmana. In Tamil, when we say plural, we Brahmanargal. Brahmana with the A ending never goes missing. That's the only term we know. So Brahmin, a funny term during our research, right? So now let us look at the next slide. Okay, because now we are looking at Purusha Shukta. Everybody, the West, the East, India, everywhere, anybody who studied a little bit of the shastras, they will quote Purusha Shukta. So it says Brahmano, Sya, Mukha, Masit, and it goes on in Sanskrit, you know. But the first line, Brahmano, Brahmanosya, is actually Brahmana. But when it gets translated into English, immediately they. But when the second, the Kshatriya, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras is still maintained as the same. So it's actually it shouldn't be changed to Brahmin. Okay, but Brahmin is an English word. We have to make the distinction to understand the difference. There's no word called Brahmin in the Sanskrit language or other indications. It's always Brahmana, and that's about it. So Brahmin is an English word, it's not a Sanskrit. And this is what is the main core problem. Okay. And after this, when we look at the internet, again, from the Purusha Shukta, the first line, Brahmana, was changed to Brahmin. And then when they do this picture, okay, this is a murti of Brahma. Okay, please listen carefully to the distinction. Brahmana is a scholar, student scholar. This is Brahma, a murti of the creator, God. Okay, but when they put the image and then they put the top part as Brahmin, priests and teachers, you can see there. And Kshatriyas are warriors, Vaishyas are farmers, Shudras are laborers and all. They term it, they give precise terms and they impose the word Brahmin. It's not Brahmin, it should be Brahmana. Okay? So this is wrong. This depiction is wrong. And then now this concludes what we said about Brahmin. Now we have these words: Brahma, Brahman, Brahmana, and Brahmi. Okay. Brahma is normally the murti or the form. Okay. Brahma is the creator with form. And Brahma has normally been depicted with 4 heads. That's what we saw just now. And that is known as the creator with form. So when we have a temple also, Brahma will have 4 heads. That's the murti. That's how we see him with form. Brahman, when we study Vedanta, okay, Brahman is the formless aspect before the form. So Brahman is the primordial, is the formless. And then when it takes a form, we term it as Brahma. This is all Sanskrit and it's very precise. It can't be changed. Okay. Then we have Brahmana. After Brahman, Brahma, we have Brahmana, meaning the scholar, student, one who pursues the study of Brahman or Brahma. That's Brahmana. Okay? It's very clear. Brahmi. Brahmi is the name for the goddess who has the aspects of Brahma. Okay? So the Brahmi comes in. That's the name of the goddess with the aspects of Brahma. She is the Shakti of Brahma. Okay? So these are all very clear. Then what is Brahmin? My contention, my question is, what is Brahmin? Right? I've asked a lot of people, a lot of scholars and all that. And what happened is that because of 200 years of convoluted and interpolation of this word to replace Brahmana, okay, in all the published material in books, in the social media and everywhere. Before social media, it was in books, in tabloids, in papers, if any paper they are doing in universities or everything. Brahmana was purposefully and intentionally replaced with Brahmin. So what happened? The whole world, scholars outside of India and scholars in India and also general Hindu population themselves started accepting and thinking that Brahmana is synonymous with Brahmin, right? Even till today, even this morning, when I was reading an article on the on Facebook from a very reputed institution, and when they mentioned about the Varnasrama, they were talking about Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And next to Brahmana, in the bracket, they put also termed as Brahmin, right? So, because this word has been inserted for the last 200 years, okay? Especially in the early 1900s, this word was inserted in many of the translated books, especially mainly only English. Okay, this was inserted and interpolated, and Brahmana in every translated scripture in English, and after that from English to other languages became Brahmin. So everybody who read these books accepted that Brahmin was a term for Brahmana and Brahmin was a upper caste. So the caste system was introduced with the term Brahmin, not Brahmana. Now, my question is, people can refute me, debate, and say so many things. If Brahmana is the original word, our contention in this book is what we say is that to English language, then the meaning gets convoluted and disparaged. We have to originally some of the basic terms, and we personally say that we have to maintain we have to go back to the root word and discuss the Brahmin so that all this confusion will go. One of the main parts now, the historical part.
Okay, thank you, Guruji. So, most of you might be thinking this entire book is about caste is not Hindu. Of course, we can quickly write a thesis about it and just explain the definition of caste and so forth. However, we took an initiative to write down or research about the history part as well. This is because it is not important just to find out a definition. We have to look at the chronological order of how it was manipulated or changed to be closely related to India. So first of all, this is Papal Bull. Papal Bull is actually a decree. It was meant for the propagation of the Catholic faith and also the expansion of the Christian empire throughout the world. You can, of course, just everyone know, just Google up Papal Bull and this is what that will appear. And it clearly stated that if a Christian enters the land of non-Christians, their lands will become the possession of the discoverers, hence the colonizers. Next, we're going to take a quick look at Goa Inquisition. So on the screen, you can see Spanish caste system and Portuguese caste system. It is not too different. However, this is the actual caste system which follows through the blood lineage. So those at the top of the hierarchical order of that pyramid are the kings and those of royal blood. And the ones at the bottom will always be of the slaves, which is quite different from what you have a look previously at Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Okay, a quick look at Jesus of Lubeck. The important part of this is the fact that this entire ship is known as Jesus of Lubeck due to a slave trader who was Sir John Hawkins. This is actually the first English slave ships which was owned by Queen Elizabeth, and it was chartered to Sir John Hawkins in the year of 1532. Sir John Hawkins was also known to be the first English slave trader, and he sold them in the Dominican Republic. I think for this part, I think the best person will be Guruji.
Earlier, we saw the slides on the Spanish caste system and the Portuguese caste system, okay, which there are slight differences in them, but also the hierarchy is based on blood lineage. So this was a feudal system whereby the kings and the aristocracy, they maintain their status. If they didn't have the divisions and didn't have protection from the blood lineage system, then anybody can become a king. So to ensure that no only they and their family enjoyed the empire or kingdom, the continuation of it. So they very seriously they protected their empire by protecting system. So they only know this system, when since they only know this system, when they look at any other new land, been to Indonesia, China, and all these places. So when they went there, their perspective, they fit whole society for according to what they know. That's what they know any. So they couldn't understand ashram order of any given society. It was not a impossible. It was just a natural order. Custom, the Portuguese and Spanish, they implemented it in the American and so the Portuguese were very strong in Goa. So they converted people and they imposed this caste system in Goa. But the main is so on the 25th August 1608, they came to trade in Surat, and then slowly over the years, the company took over almost all of India. And after the 1857, considered, we will say it's the War of Independence, but they will say it's the Sepoy Mutiny. Then the British Raj took over of the whole of India. And then we have to, in our book, we mention about this French missionary, okay, Abbe J. Du Bois was alive and he lived until 1848. He predominantly lived from France and he came with the mission onward Hindus, and he predominantly lived in South India, in Tamil Nadu. At the same time, South India and moving around, he jotted down all his observations into a diary, a manuscript actually. And the good thing about what he did was he was very, very precise. He was very, very precise and very, very observant. So he recorded everything that happened in front of his eyes. And this became a book later. He didn't publish it as a book. It was bought over the East India Company. It's bought over by the East India Company. And then the East India Company him many parts of the manuscript. It's in the history books, okay? Made him rewrite many part of the manuscript. And they only printed it after almost, they didn't print it earlier, okay? So it was called the Hindu Manners, Customs, and Ceremonies. Okay, why this book is important, the Hindu Manners and Ceremonies, is that and book he recorded that because of the Brahman, he was unable to convert anybody in South India. And he deduced that there was no point in staying in India because he can't convert anybody and his mission has failed and he wanted to go back to France. During this time is when they bought the book over from him. So he already identified that the Brahmanas were a problem as what was the practice then. They have in his own writing, in his own book, the practice then was everybody, a Hindu who has anything and wants to do anything, they will go and consult the Brahmanas because they knew Vedic astrology, they knew how to do puja, and they the knowledge of the shastra-s or the scriptures. So they always consulted them. They go to the temple and they make an appointment and they see them and they consult. Even today, a lot of we Hindus, we do that. You know, when it comes to marriage or important trips overseas or important things, we want to launch a book also, we will go and see them to get the auspicious time, good day, and astrological things and all that, and also get their blessing, okay, asirwad. So that was written in his book as a problem. And he also was the first one of the first, okay, because he has documented everything. Varna, the term Varna was changed in his book and introduced as caste. And this book, his book is 1824 or 1832. Okay, it is 1824 or 1832. Over here, we can see that here this book will be 1901, the one we are having on our screen. But he actually wrote the manuscript much earlier. And on the screen, we can see Hindu Manners, Customs and Ceremonies by the Abbé J.A. Dubois, translated from the author's later French manuscript and edited with notes, correction, and biography by Henry K. Beauchamp, who was the officer of the East India Company in India, okay, who was a fellow of the University of Madras, fellow of the Royal Historical Society, member of the Royal Asiatic Society. Okay, and at the bottom with a preparatory note by the Right Honorable Friedrich Max Müller. So we have all the players in this book, okay, because Max Müller wrote the forward for this book. I've gone through this book. Okay, so this is very important because he introduced the word caste to replace the Varna. And this started off the whole chain process of them wanting to convert Hindus in India. And this book helped them to plan the entire thing. Now, we go to the next slide and we'll see what happened after this. This was in 1824, 1832, but published in 1901. Now, we come to this very interesting person, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Borden. Okay, he's a retired soldier in service of the East India Company. Okay, all of them were somehow or other involved with the East India Company. He wished to establish a university where a Sanskrit professorship to assist in the conversion of the people of British India to Christianity. And he bequeathed all his money to fund scholarship in Sanskrit at Oxford. So the Borden Professor of Sanskrit was established in 1832 for this purpose. Now, why we say this is one of the most important criteria in the development of the caste is because the Borden Professor of Sanskrit was funded from this money in Oxford. Okay, the chairmanship was in Oxford, and the main purpose was to convert the people of British India to Christianity. All right. So after this was started, then their chairman, in the next slide, we can see that their chairman, the second chairman was Monier Williams, who was the Borden Professor from 1860 to 1899. Okay. Sir Monier Williams was educated in East India Company College. So East India Company, from the wealth that they got from India, they started a college in England, in UK at that time, England, East India Company College. And he also went on further to study at University College, Oxford. His father was Colonel Monier Williams, Surveyor General in the Bombay Presidency. In fact, Monia Williams was born in Bombay and then moved to England to study. Okay. What is so significant about him becoming the Borden professor in 1860 was that he came out with the Sanskrit English dictionary. As you can see in the image there, Sir Monia Williams. So this was the first Sanskrit English dictionary in England, in Oxford. All right. And this is the dictionary that we went and saw where the word Brahmana became Brahman and later until now it is Brahmin. So the meaning of the word has changed over the years. And this is enough historical evidence for everyone to double check even today to show the transition of the word Brahmana to Brahmin. Okay. These are some of the players that you have mentioned in our book. Another important person, why Sir William Jones? Okay. And 1746 to 1794 was a Supreme Court judge in Bengal, and he founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal. Now, William Jones, also a Sanskrit scholar, okay, he was the first person to translate the Manu Smriti. Okay, here you can see Institutes of Hindu Law or the Ordinances of Menu. Okay. Indian System of Duties, Religious and Civil, with a preface by Sir William Jones. So he had scholars in India at that time to help him translate, and he translated it, the Manu Smriti. Now, today, this is today, I'm talking about today. Today in UK, the Education Ministry, I think, they wanted to introduce Manu Smriti as part of the syllabus for UK children. Okay, and there's a lot of opposition to this. Now, why the opposition to this is there is because the translation they want to use comes from here in English. And this translation has been interpolated with the term Brahmin and a lot of other terms that derogates the Manu Shastra, Manu Smriti, which a lot of the scholars, Sanskrit scholars and Hindu scholars in India don't agree with, because this is the mistranslation of the Manu Smriti. This is not the proper, because when you compare it with the original Sanskrit, there are a lot of discrepancies. But due to this being an ancient and old translation, the Western academia gives a lot of merit to this, which for the Eastern scholars is totally wrong, because the Sanskrit words have been convoluted, and they, instead of giving the proper meaning, it has been given a debased meaning. So if we go through this book together, or we can, if anybody is interested, we can sit down and translate this book now from the Sanskrit to the English, and then you will find the discrepancies between what our translation will be and what is been translated by Sir William Jones. So why we are showing all this is, you see, all these people somehow or rather were involved with the East India Company, and the Borden chair, right, propagator of all these things happening. Okay, the Sir Monia Williams Sanskrit English Dictionary was because of the Borden chair. Sir William Jones translating the Manu Smriti was also part of the Borden chair, and with the East India Company at the back. And then we come to Frederick Max Muller, 1823 to 1900. He is the founder father of the subject of Indology for Western academia. Okay, he was involved in the translation. Actually, the other authors, other Indologists or Orientalists, they call that time, they translated the sacred books of the East, a 50-volume set to English language. Okay, it involves Vedic, Dharmic, Hindu, and then Buddhism, Taoism. This 50-volume has all the Eastern religions translated to English. And this became like the Rosetta Stone or the Holy Grail, because everybody, and this, since this was founded by Max Muller himself, and this was the first Indology department in the Western world, so it drew a lot of attention from all Western academia in the world. And this set the scene for what was going to happen for the next 200 years. So this is very important part of history. And what he was hired not by Oxford, he was hired by the East India Company. His salary came from the East India Company directly. Okay. And he was in charge of editing the translations of any Sanskrit work to English. So this is where a lot of the interpolation, after the Orientalists, they translated it, even if they did a proper job, it was edited to their perspective. So the Varnasrama became Caste, Brahmana became Brahmin. So everything was edited to portray and degrade Hinduism, to show that Hinduism was not a good, you can say, religion or shastra or scripture, that there was a fault in it, there was a defect in it. And by showing there was a fault in Vedic Hinduism or Hindu studies or our scriptures or shastras, then see if now I can take a book and I can translate it and show the flaws in the book, I become superior. The book, the people who book belongs to the people, that group of people become inferior. Okay, so this set the stage to show their superiority, and then our scriptures became inferior. And then what the British did, the colonizers did in India was, and there are a lot of players, but this man, H.H. Risley, Herbert Hope Risley, 1851 to 1911, was the British president of Asiatic Society of Bengal. The founder was Sir William Jones. He was later. And then he was the director of ethnography for India. He introduced the Aryan theory through anthropology. He wrote the book, The People of India, 1901. And he also was the census commissioner for Bengal and later census commissioner for the whole of India when the British government took over. Now, why he is very important historical persona is because he is the one who designed the census questionnaire. See, the anthropological society, the ethnographic society, the Asiatic society, see, all these societies were established in England, and they used the method, a statistical method. Okay, the good thing about the anthropological society in England, when they established it, is they wanted to measure society in every means they can. So like now we have GDP, GNP, all these things was started from there, where they introduced statistics to study a society. So, and later it became anthropometry and anthropology, where they started measuring human beings to classify them, who's superior, who's inferior. And H.S. Risley was one of the main proponents of this, who he instilled and experimented with these theories in India, because he had a wide range of subject matter in India. The people were so variant that he didn't have time. He had so much things to play with, so much of measurements to do all this. But in that also, the census questionnaire was introduced by him and his people, and in that census questionnaire is where their divide and rule policy started. Okay, India was the testing ground. India was the laboratory where they could do all these things, and then it was transferred to Southeast Asia and other parts of the world where they colonized. So in India, when they introduced the census questionnaire, then they put the race and caste. Before that, there was no such thing. Nobody asked anybody, what is your race or caste? It was in the 1870 or 1880 census questionnaire that first they introduced these questions, race and caste. And people, when they went to a village, the census officials, they told people, that if you are this caste, a higher caste and lower caste, the higher caste you'll get better jobs. It's all recorded in their books. Okay, if you're a higher caste, you get better jobs. You know, you might get promotion and all that. This kind of inducement were given, and there's also associations that were started during that time period in 1880, 1890, 1900 to get people to become members of the association and to persuade the government to caste or their varna as a higher caste. It's in his books. Okay, it's not something philosophy or nothing. It's totally written in their history. And so the division of higher and lower caste became a common thing from that time period. Okay. And we have to also look at this. We have to look at the Independence War of 1857, where it's also called the Great Mutiny or Sepoy Rebellion of 1857, right? In here, in their documents, they have class 1, military, and they had, under the military, they had, I think, about more than 30 million groups of people from different parts of India who they've identified as military people who were against them, who were involved in the Independence War. So after the war, the East India Company ceased. Because of this Sepoy Rebellion or Independence War, the English government, the British took over, ruled, and then they found this classification by state of different, they call it castes or different ethnic groups. All these ethnic groups who fought against them, who rebelled, were criminalized. They started, see, the Independence War was 1857. They had 14, 13, where they placed all these people under the criminal tribes. The statistics is this 30 million people tribes has not been unlabeled, or the label has not been removed. So what they implemented in 1871 is still being carried on, and the divisions of this warrior group of people became lower class Dalits because they rebelled against the British rule. That's all. Until now, people, a lot of Dalits feel, even Dr. Ambedkar, we all know who Dr. Ambedkar is. He wrote the Constitution of India. Okay. Comes from the Mahar Jati. Okay. Mahar Jati are also warriors. So they were also labeled as criminals. And they became lower class and Dalits. And this is the way that they classified a lot of people and put them as higher class Brahmin, and then put a lot of people as Dalits, the oppressed, and said the Brahmins oppressed the Dalits. Whereas in reality, the historical evidence is that they did this so that they can divide the Indian society forever. And we must understand this was a very, very cunning and clever scheme, because what they tested in India, it worked for 200 years, where the divisions have been sowed so deep that millions of people have died because of inter-ethnic fights. And this has also happened in other parts of the world where they colonized, especially there are a lot of historical wars, civil wars in Africa, that the divisions through the census questionnaire that was started by them exist till today in the colonies of Africa. And even in Malaysia, right? In Malaysia, the census questionnaire divides people by their ethnicity. Or you have to tick if you're a Malay, if you're a Chinese, if you're an Indian, if you are from the native people, or you're the hill tribe, you have to tick the boxes. So this was started before independence during the British time. So this model, statistical model, was introduced to the colonized world by the British to divide and rule, and they were very successful in it, and we have to recognize the nationality and questions. Okay, this was the extract from their report of the 1880 census report.
So as you can see, as previously what Guruji has stated, Jati was later on changed to caste. Previously, when they did the first census questionnaire, Jati was written there, and below of it was religion and so forth, all the questions. But when H.H. Risley took over, he became the commissioner, census commissioner. The questions changed from Jati being caste. And this is how they had somehow took down all the notes, took down all the jatis that was there at that time in India, and cleverly placed it under caste and just a four varna system. The four varna system was Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So before moving further, this is a definition that we have given in our book to make things much more clearer and simpler for every single person, including and especially Hindus in this world. So if anyone asks you which caste do you belong to, you can tell them, I am of no caste. You only have jati. If you know what jati you're from and the occupational group that your family is for generation, then you can state that. However, when they come and say what caste you are from, just tell them that caste is actually just the social order of the Portuguese and Spanish based blood lineage, which has got nothing to do and is not similar and cannot be a synonym to varna nor jati. Okay, so this is something we created. We would like it to spread and catch fire because this is how for 200 years the lies has been continued. So if possible, all of you, please share this widely. We have to stop using the words Brahmin and caste. Brahmin is not a Sanskrit word. Brahmana is a word and it is not under caste. It falls under Varna. And caste, you can use Varna or Jati, and please do let everyone know that caste is not ours. We do have Jati and Varna under the Vedic civilization.
Yeah. So, very detailed presentation, and thank you for that. In Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, Krishna says, Kshatriya Visham Shudranam, Karma Vibhaktim. Like Bhagavad Gita says that only by karma, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya are known, and Shudra. Bhagavad Gita says it 18.41. And also there are 9 qualities of Brahmana are mentioned, 7 qualities of Kshatriya are mentioned, 3 qualities of Vaishya are mentioned, and Shudra only 1 quality is mentioned. No?
That's
In
correct.
Kali Yuga, by those definitions, by Gita's definitions, everybody is a Shudra. Because everybody is working for somebody else. Very few people are Vaishya nowadays who are working for themselves or who don't work for anyone else. And even fewer are Kshatriyas because nowadays the businessmen have occupied the position of Kshatriyas.
Yeah.
And even lesser are Brahmana because nobody is independent. Normally Brahmana doesn't take money from anyone. Chanakya Rishi used to live outside the city.
Yeah.
And he used to live in a small hut. So the definitions are very clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita. The problem is the Hindus don't read it.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we get into long answers explaining these attacks on us. You know, foolish people need not be educated. But this presentation is for the Hindus, not for them. Because
exactly.
Because they need not be... See, we don't have to educate the foolish people. Or we don't have to educate people who are attacking you. For people who are attacking us, we have to reply them in kind. Like caste the problem of caste is in Europe, and the problem of caste is in USA and Australia and New Zealand and Canada. All these countries which attack, and also in the Middle East, because mostly they are based on the family-driven structures. So one comment on this from both of you, is it possible? One each? Yeah.
Sure. Guruji?
That every Hindu parent should give this book to their own children, them back to the parents back. they should know the history. Own scriptures have been manipulated or mistranslated, then they will have confidence that, oh, okay, our civilization has a lot of truths in it, and people are trying to break down and give us a false narrative. So this thought in
Aiksha?
Yes.
I think there's an internet problem with
Yeah,
viewers.
Guruji.
You go ahead.
Okay, so my comment will be for every Hindu, please buy the book and read it, because it will build up your confidence in answering or debunking the questions that are towards you from the Westerners. The caste narrative is still used today to denigrate Hindus and also Hinduism. It is used to show that our civilization is primitive and we are of a backward religion. So, to debunk that, please try to read up and learn of your history. Then you'll have more confidence. And this book simply corrects the false narrative. Hence, that's why in the title of our book itself is written, Caste is not Hindu. It's a very clear picture. That's about it.
Thank you so much, viewers, for watching this show, and do like, share, subscribe, and also viewers from Malaysia should also join. And do join our course, 12x Debunking Mythology course, which covers many of these points plus much more. And I'll see you in my next show. Namaste. Thank you.